Welcome to the Explainer. So, have you ever looked at a massive field of tall, green sugarcane just blowing in the wind and thought, I could totally drive my car with that, right? It sounds a bit like science fiction, but honestly, it is entirely science fact. Today, we're diving right into this completely magical transformation of a simple green plant into a highly efficient, clean-burning fuel that's literally powering vehicles all over the world.
Okay, let's dive into this roadmap. First up, the biofuel basics. Then we'll trace the journey from field to factory. After that, we'll get into the chemistry of fuel, look at refining and blending, and finally, wrap things up with a sustainable future.
So, Part 1. The biofuel basics. What exactly is ethanol? Let's look at ethanol, C2H5OH. It's a seriously powerful alternative to traditional fossil fuels. Basically, it's a renewable biofuel made by fermenting the sugars that naturally occur in biological stuff, like sugarcane. It's just such an incredibly elegant solution to a massive, modern problem. Because think about it, instead of drilling deep down into the earth for finite crude oil, we are effectively just growing our fuel right here on the surface.
Now, you rarely pump pure 100% ethanol into your tank. Instead, it gets blended with traditional petrol. Take E10, for example. That's a blend of 10% ethanol and 90% petrol. E20 is 20% ethanol, and that goes all the way up to E85. And this brilliantly illustrates how countries, like India for instance, are rapidly expanding their use of these specific blends. Why? Well, to directly reduce their crude oil imports and massively boost their own national energy security.
All right, shifting gears to Section 2, from field to factory, sugarcane cultivation. It all starts in the dirt, just with a planted section of a mature cane stalk. Now, to really thrive, this plant is pretty demanding. It needs a warm climate, lots of sunlight, fertile soil, and steady irrigation. And depending on where it's planted, that green stalk takes a pretty long time, about 10 to 18 months to fully mature. But during this long growth cycle, the plant is basically acting like a giant biological battery, just storing up massive amounts of sucrose. And that sucrose is the absolute foundational raw material for our fuel. Once that internal sugar content hits its absolute peak, boom, it's harvest time. This can be done manually, where workers carefully cut the stalks with specialized tools, or mechanically, with massive harvesters that cut, clean, and collect the cane with brutal efficiency. But here is the absolute crucial part. The literal second that cane is cut, the clock starts ticking. It has to be rapidly transported to the sugar mill by truck, tractor, or rail, because if it just sits out there in the hot sun, the sugar degrades and our potential fuel is totally lost.
So the trucks rush the cane to the mill, and the heavy machinery takes over. First up, the cane gets washed to clear off any dirt. Then, it's shredded by these giant rotating knives. Finally, it gets fed into these incredibly heavy roller mills. This crushing phase is loud, it's mechanical, and it's highly effective. They squeeze the cane multiple times until we're left with two distinct things: a sweet, watery sugarcane juice and a dry, fibrous leftover residue called bagasse. Definitely keep that bagasse in the back of your mind for later.
Leaving the heavy machinery behind, let's get into Section 3, the chemistry of fuel, the fermentation process.
I want you to take a second and really think about this. How exactly does a puddle of sweet, sticky sugarcane juice turn into a combustible, high-octane fuel that can actually propel a car down the highway? Honestly, it almost sounds like magic.
Well, the secret to this magic is actually this incredible little microorganism, Saccharomyces cerevisiae. After that sugarcane juice is clarified to get rid of mud and impurities, it's pumped into massive fermentation tanks, and this specific microscopic yeast is dropped in. This yeast, it is literally the microscopic workforce driving the entire operation. For the next 24 to 48 hours, it just gets right to work.
And what's really fascinating here is how straightforward this core biological reaction actually is. As the yeast eats the input sugar during fermentation, it outputs exactly three things: ethanol, carbon dioxide, and energy. That's it. But at the end of this fermentation period, the resulting liquid mixture, which engineers creatively call the wash or beer, only contains about 8% to 12% actual ethanol. The rest of it is mostly just water and residual solids.
Which brings us right to Section 4, refining and blending, purifying ethanol.
Because, let's face it, your car engine absolutely cannot run on 12% ethanol without totally flooding. So, we have to separate that ethanol from the water. We use a process called distillation, which leans on a super simple physics principle. Ethanol and water have different boiling points. First, we heat up the wash.
because ethanol boils at a lower temperature than water, and ethanol-rich vapor forms and rises up through the distillation column. Then, that vapor cools and condenses right back into a liquid. This incredibly elegant separation yields hydrous ethanol that is about 95% pure.
But believe it or not, 95% still isn't quite good enough for your gas tank. To hit a massive fuel-grade purity of 99.5% to 99.9%, we have to squeeze out basically every single remaining drop of water. Getting to this staggering level of purity requires a really intense dehydration phase. Modern plants pull this off using molecular sieve technology, which are essentially these high-tech materials that selectively trap and yank out those lingering water molecules.
So the crucial point here is that this final dehydration step creates our ultimate goal, anhydrous ethanol. Anhydrous literally just means without water. This is it, the extremely high-purity, fuel-grade final product. Once it hits this state, it goes through incredibly strict testing in quality labs, gets securely stored in specialized tanks with vapor controls, and is finally shipped off to fuel depots, where it's perfectly suitable for blending with traditional gasoline.
Now let's zoom out and move to Section 5, a sustainable future, ecology and economy. Okay, remember that dry, fibrous bagasse from the crushing phase we talked about earlier? Well, instead of just dumping it in a landfill, mills actually burn it to generate the steam and electricity that literally powers the very plant doing the crushing. Talk about a remarkable zero-waste circular loop. Plus, the carbon dioxide released during fermentation, that gets captured and used by the beverage industry. And the vinasse, that's the liquid left over after distillation, is completely repurposed as a nutrient-rich agricultural fertilizer. So the plant literally powers itself, carbonates your soda, and fertilizes the next harvest. Absolutely brilliant. And all those internal plant efficiencies lead directly to some massive external benefits. Compared to conventional gasoline, sugarcane ethanol brings just a cascade of environmental and economic wins. We're talking severely reduced fossil fuel dependence, way lower greenhouse gas emissions, and it's fundamentally renewable because, well, you can just replant the cane. Plus, this entire domestic ecosystem creates incredible energy security and spurs real, tangible rural economic growth for farmers and agro-industries.
However, to really understand the full picture here, we do have to look at the real-world hurdles the industry still faces. Growing sugarcane on a massive scale requires immense amounts of water and dedicated agricultural land. Add in the unpredictability of seasonal crop variations, plus the sheer logistical cost of securely transporting and storing millions of gallons of fuel, and it becomes pretty clear that maximizing this process requires a very, very delicate balance of resources.
But here's the exciting part. Researchers are actively tackling these exact challenges with next-generation technology. A huge focus right now is second-generation ethanol, which is made not from the sweet juice but from leftover biomass and agricultural residues. We're also seeing the rise of much faster fermentation technologies, advanced carbon capture systems, and fully integrated smart biorefineries. These incredible innovations are really solidifying ethanol's vital role in the global clean energy transition.
Which brings us to our final thought. We've traced the amazing journey of sugarcane from a sun-drenched field, through the heavy crushing mills, into the microscopic world of yeast, right up to the gas pump. It is just a breathtaking convergence of agriculture, biotechnology, and chemical engineering. But as these smart biorefineries learn to turn every single part of a plant into sustainable power, it makes you wonder, what other everyday crops might hold the secret key to our clean energy transition? Thank you so much for exploring this fascinating journey with me today, and hey, keep your curiosity fueled.